Pollution. A serious problem we find in this world we live in, as the amount of pollution that occurs are from emissions of many types, commonly produced by humans. Pollution of the Realms brings this realism into Minecraft, making you more aware and more committed to protect your world. How's it going everyone, and welcome back to a new showcase. Today's mod is Pollution of the Realms, and this mod brings blocks of carbon and sulfur emissions which can affect the way you play in Minecraft, including your food, plants, animals, and more. The aim of this mod is to make players more aware of environmental pollution and encourages them to use different and cleaner ways to reduce this. This mod is compatible with many different mods that can make it easier or harder for you to control pollution, but for the sake of this showcase, I will only be using the Pollution of the Realms mod, as well as the Advanced Chimneys mod. So without further ado, let's get into it. First, let's look at the different sources that create pollution, making your world more lethal. Furnaces are one of the first sources that you may create that produces pollution. Whether you are cooking food or smelting ore, you will be producing some pollution that may affect you if not controlled. Torches are another source of pollution, and may be the most common problem you will have keeping under control. A torch is the main source of light you will create in Minecraft, as you light up your house, caves, or around your home to keep you safe from monsters. Fire is another source of pollution. This is quite easy to manage considering not a lot of things need fire. It can sometimes appear naturally, however, in forest fires that start due to lava pools. This brings us on to the next source of pollution, which is lava. Unfortunately, a lot of caves in your world will generate with lava inside of them, so this may be hard to control. This also goes for lava pools that can naturally occur overground. Explosions is another source of pollution, and one that is quite easy to control. The main ways of an explosion can occur is if a player ignites some TNT or if a creeper explodes, but if you have some mods installed, then you'll need to keep explosions in mind. Machines can be another source of pollution, and this may be more common in mods, so if you do have some downloaded, this is another to keep in mind. Vehicles is another source of pollution, and again, this may be a factor to think about when downloading mods, as you may use more ways of transporting other than just minecarts. The final sources of pollution come from animals and players. Players are a common source of pollution, because many of the sources I have mentioned are man-made, like torches, furnaces, vehicles, sometimes explosions. All of these sources of pollution can make it hard for players to adapt to, but it gives a new way to enjoy Minecraft and give a different experience. Now that I've mentioned the different ways pollution may be produced in your world, let me tell you about the effects that can occur as a result of this. There are two types of emissions that may be produced, sulfur and carbon. You can keep track of the percentage of emissions in a chunk with an error meter, which is created like so. When the sulfur emissions reach over 30%, then you may suffer from poison. On their CurseForge page, this is classed as non-lethal, so expect it to get much worse. When sulfur emissions reach over 50%, then you may be affected by blindness, but that's not the last of it. If you somehow manage to get the sulfur emissions to over 90%, well, then it almost becomes impossible to live in your world, as you have a chance to be inflicted with wither. So, if you can help it, don't get your sulfur emissions high enough for this to happen. Carbon emissions may also get produced, and this has different effects depending on how high the percentage is. When your carbon emissions reaches over 30%, then you can be inflicted with mining fatigue, meaning breaking blocks will become more of an effort. If your carbon emissions reach over 40%, then you can be inflicted with hunger. Over 50% carbon emissions means that you can be inflicted with weakness. Carbon emissions that are over 60% in your world can give you the slowness effect. Carbon emissions over 70% can inflict you with poison, which is again put as non-lethal on their CurseForge page. Over 80% carbon emissions means that you can be inflicted with nausea. And finally, over 90% of carbon emissions can inflict you with the effect wither. These are all big inconveniences when you are trying to live in your world, so you should really be doing everything to stop this from happening. Some extra factors to think about is that staying in the emissions block without protection can lead you to suffocate and die. Also, animals that are born in a polluted chunk in your world can have its base health reduced. This is something that you must keep an eye on if you have farms and pets, as you don't want your animals to be weaker than they are. Now, this isn't all doom and gloom, as you can still use lots of stations that do produce pollution. This is all done by filters and putting them in place to stop the greenhouse gases from entering your world's atmosphere. There are three different filters: the iron, the gold, and the diamond. Filters can protect against one pollutant of either carbon, sulfur, or dust, and you will be required to fill them with the filter material, and you will need to clean them as well. Make sure you create many, because if lots of emissions build up in one place, they can explode, so you can't just block them off with a roof. Advanced Chimneys is great to use with this mod, as you can move any misplaced emissions with chimneys and vents, giving you an easy way to manage them and decrease the chance of an explosion. To create a carbon filter, you'll need either an iron, golden, or diamond filter. You now need to obtain some leaves of any kind. Interact with the iron filter and place the leaves inside, and a carbon block will appear that you can't grab in the box underneath. This will now start to filter any carbon emissions that occur below it. Once enough carbon emissions have gone into the filter, the leaves will disappear and you will receive black dye. You will need to constantly refill this with leaves, otherwise the filter won't work. Next is the sulfur filter, and for this, you will need to create the filter as well as wool. This wool can be any color, as it will work all the same. You know you've done this correctly, as a sulfur emission block will show in the bottom box. Once this is full, it will create yellow dye, so you will need to constantly refill this with wool. The final filter you can create is a dust filter. Now, this isn't really an emission, but it can cause some trouble for the environment around you. An example is when dust touches grass. It will only take a few seconds before it turns it into a path block. If more dust goes onto the same block, it will turn into coarse dirt. You can stop this, however, with a dust filter, which is created when you put paper into it. Again, once this is full, it will produce grey dye, and you will need to refill it again. There are many different ways you can create a system with hoppers, redstone, etc. to make this more automatic, so you don't have to worry about creating emissions when using furnaces and placing torches or doing other things that may create emissions. Again, it is recommended that you do use the advanced chimneys mod to help you with this. Now, there are actually some more items you can do to clean the emissions that have appeared in your world. This can be by many things such as vacuum tubes, vacuum bags, as well as respirators. Vacuum tubes are an essential way of keeping your world clean from carbon, sulfur, and dust pollutants, and you can craft either an iron, gold, or diamond type. For this, you will need the block of the material you want to make it out of, an iron ingot, a button, a redstone comparator, and a redstone repeater. The better the material, the better performing it will be. You can't use a vacuum tube without a vacuum bag to store it all in. For this, you will need 2 diamonds, gold, or iron ingots, a leather tunic, 3 leather, 2 wool, and a slime ball. Next, you will need to combine the vacuum bag with 2 paper or leaves to get the carbon and dust filter. When you craft the vacuum bag, the sulfur filter should already be included. To simply use the vacuum tube, you need to equip the vacuum bag on your chest area and just hold down right click near the pollutant. The pollutant will then be sucked into the bag and you'll be able to see how much of each you have stored. If your vacuum bag does get full, you can combine it with paper, wool, or leaves to empty it and dispose of it safely. If the vacuum bag needs repairing, it can be done with leather. If you are in the process of trying to be more efficient of protecting your world from the harmful emissions but it's taking a while, pollution may increase, which will slow you down. Respirators are a great way to help you through this, as they can make you immune to the harmful effects that can be inflicted onto you. This can be crafted with 1 diamond, gold, or iron ingot, 1 leather cap, 2 glass bottles, 2 leather, 2 wool, and 1 leaves. This doesn't mean that you should just ignore the emissions you create. It is there to help you in places where it may be hard to clean your world from these effects. The carbon and sulfur filters are already equipped when you craft the respirator, but you will need to combine it with paper if you want to add the dust filter in an anvil. If you need to repair this, it can be done so with leaves. So, if you don't want to constantly wear your respirator, then you can create something called an air purifier. This is something that is made with the advanced chimney mod as well as the pollution of the realms. You need a redstone signal, a filter, and a pump. Place the pump below the filter and insert paper, wool, or leaves, depending on what you want to keep that area clear of. Now, input a redstone signal to the pump and you have yourself a working air purifier. The closer the pollutant is to the air purifier, the quicker it will get sucked into it. The better the material of the filter, the more range it will have. If it is made out of iron, it only has an 8 block radius. If it is made out of gold, it will have a 16 block radius. And finally, if it is made out of diamond, it has a 32 block radius. This can also purify any polluted water if the pump is placed 1 block beneath the water and the filter is placed on top of it, so it's sticking out. The aerometer may come in handy here as it shows how many pollutants are in that specific area. Carbon can be harmful to you as the player and any nearby animals. The same can't be said about plants and crops, however. This is because carbon emissions are great for them and can in fact accelerate their growth. All you need to do is build a system from which you can operate in and have yourself a working greenhouse. Your crops should be ready to harvest much quicker now. That's it from me today. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. This mod really does a great job at teaching players how to manage a world with pollution and how to use it. Thanks to DC Mag for suggesting me this mod to showcase. I appreciate it. Make sure to check out this mod and the advanced chimney mod too, as it is highly compatible. I hope you have a great day and I'll catch you all in the next video.